Henri Konan Bedi is really dead. Simone Gbagbo is sadly killing herself politically. A vibrant tribute to President Henri Konan Bedi, in light of current political developments in Côte d'Ivoire. There is no point in comparing what is not comparable. Indeed, that is not the purpose of the following reflection. Even posthumously, it is appropriate to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar, while placing the church back at the center of the village. This is not a trivial exercise, as it involves judging politicians by their ability to place the nation's best interests above their partisan interests, or even their personal appetites. In this regard, the maxim of an illustrious thinker remains burningly relevant: the politician thinks of the next election, while the statesman thinks of future generations. It is in this light that we must analyze the role and legacy of Henri Konan Bedi. Our country's recent history provides a striking contrast, particularly when we compare the latter's stance in 2020 regarding Alassane Ouattara's third term, and the current attitude of Simone Gbagbo, a declared presidential candidate who, as everyone knows, is tailor-made for the current regime.
You know, let's suppose that today the opposition decides to go to the elections with a single candidate. So we go to the elections with a single candidate, given the electoral system as it stands. But we'll be defeated, even if we only have one candidate. That's clear.
Why do you say that?
But I say that because the current system, as it's organized, the electoral list, as it's constructed today, cannot allow a candidate who isn't in power to win the elections.
Just a few days ago, I sent the former First Lady a grave message. I asked her to withdraw her candidacy so as not to endorse the impending forfeiture. For, in truth, Simone Gbagbo should under no circumstances accompany the butcher of the lagoons in this infamy, in this political fraud that he is attempting to disguise as a presidential election. History is repeating itself, almost to the day, 5 years earlier. In 2020, Henri Konan Bedi saw his candidacy validated by a domesticated and instrumentalized constitutional council, under the orders of Alassane Ouattara. The latter, a master of electoral manipulation, had carefully chosen his front-runners and had pre-delivered them paltry scores. His goal was clear: to inflict the ultimate humiliation on President Bedi, to drink his revenge to the dregs. But Henri Konan Bedi, well versed in the subtleties of diplomacy and seasoned by decades of public life, sensed a trap. Trained in the rigorous school of the PDCRDA, top of the diplomat's course at the Quai d'Orsay, ambassador to the United States at only 27 years old, and an outstanding negotiator, he understood that an election rigged at the bottom could only lead to a fraud at the top. His experience taught him an implacable truth: he who violates the Constitution will never lose an election, even if the ballot box condemns him. That is why, as a statesman, Henri Konan Bedi refused to participate in the charade. His gesture was deeply meaningful. By renouncing the biased competition, he reminded the people that legitimacy cannot be bargained away, that it cannot be won at the cost of unworthy compromises. He also reminded them that the dignity of a leader lies in his ability to say no to injustice, even at the cost of his own sacrifice. Henri Konan Bedi fought for a third term until his grave. He refused the seats, institutions, and portfolios that the despot Ouattara dangled before him to buy his silence. Better still, he resisted even when the dictator sent hooded men to his room to arrest him. At 86, he demonstrated a lucidity and tenacity that command admiration. Few leaders at that age would have undertaken such a show of strength. In contrast, Simone Gbagbo today displays an incomprehensible elation, in the face of a constitutional validation whose emptiness is well known. Her attitude provokes embarrassment and sadness. The scene of her jubilation was indecent and tragically ridiculous. It shatters the adage that behind a great man hides a great woman.
Madame Bedi, my royal dear and inexhaustible source of inspiration. With a woman of such quality, you will never have the gooman.
In truth, behind Simone Gbagbo lurked Laurent Gbagbo, the man whose stature absorbed and masked his ex-partner's mistakes and weaknesses. How can Simone Gbagbo convince herself and others that she is running in this election to win? She knows perfectly well that she is merely a pawn in a chess game whose outcome is predetermined. Giving a blank check for Alassane Ouattara's fourth term is a stab in the back of the Ivorian people. It is an act that history will remember as a deep wound. Perhaps it is the Gumain, this personal grief, this romantic disappointment, that drives her to such a downward spiral. But the psychological explanation is no political excuse. Laurent Gbagbo himself had perceived in her, according to some accounts, a tendency to compromise with the opposing regime. Even if one can understand that she felt betrayed, nothing justifies surrendering oneself to the enemy, making oneself the objective ally of the one who tramples the constitution. Great female figures in history, faced with marital adversity, have nevertheless maintained their commitment intact. Winnie Mandela, despite her trials, never betrayed the cause of her people. Kadi Sow, after her separation from President Houphouët-Boigny, did not compromise with the communists of the time. Patience Davani, former First Lady of Gabon, remained silent without ever betraying the secrets of the Bongo household. In France, even though Valérie Trierweiler published the book Thank You for This Moment against François Hollande, who had cheated on her with Julie Gay, she did not go further than this literary essay, flavored with a failed romance, to throw herself into the arms of the enemy. Conversely, Simone Gbagbo, for whom I had so much respect, is now embarking on a perilous path, that of resentment transformed into betrayal. And who is encouraging her in this shipwreck? Charles Blé Goody, the man whom history will remember as the traitor par excellence, is trying to drag Simone Gbagbo into his wake, so as not to bear the burden of infamy alone. He is fanning the flames, manipulating the wounds, stirring up division, adding spice to the wounds, always against President Laurent Gbagbo. Alassane Ouattara, for his part, watches, amused, and drinks in the sweet milk. The scores are already in, 92% for him, crumbs for the others. The play is playing out without suspense, but if Simone Gbagbo does not step down in time, she will assume responsibility for having shattered a collective hope. She will plunge the sword into the heart of the nation, and the Ivorian people, exasperated, risk sooner or later confusing her with Ouattara, and inflicting their wrath on her.
Ivoirians, my dear compatriots, for more than 20 years, the history of our young nation has been marked by tragic moments and deep pain in the hearts of all our people. The wounds have become even more acute in recent months. During a presidential election organized by force by the RHDP government. A new tearing apart that we did not need after what our brave people have already experienced for decades. Let's say it without hesitation, in truth, the rich diversity of our beautiful nation. The founding values of our republic, unity, discipline, and hard work are crumbling before our eyes due to the fault of a clan that wants to maintain its power at all costs, in violation of the basic rules of good governance and, above all, of our fundamental law. The Constitution, faced with this drift and the stubborn refusal of dialogue by the head of state in the interest of the nation, I launched a call for civil disobedience after consultation with all opposition leaders, including President Laurent Gbagbo. I congratulate and renew my confidence in the vast majority of our compatriots who overwhelmingly adhered to the call for civil disobedience out of love for our country. And as one man, you responded solitarily no to the violation of our Constitution, in the face of the unprecedented and limitless violence of armed militias in the pay of the government. The sad toll of around 100 deaths, more than 200 serious injuries, and the planned destruction of private and professional property has not moved anyone among those in power. On your behalf, I pay renewed tribute to all our brothers and sisters, to all our children who have disappeared or been seriously injured in their physical and moral integrity, for their courage and determination in favor of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. The true results of the presidential election, in which so many men and women died or were scarred for life, are known to all. The actual turnout, confirmed by credible international observers, is less than 10%. The officially announced results merely reflect a deliberate attempt by our leaders to hold democracy hostage, despite our people's deep aspirations for peace. As a result of this sham election, several political leaders, association and civil society leaders, numerous young people, and valiant women were subjected to arbitrary arrest, imprisonment, or house arrest. My wife, Henriette Conan Beatty, and I were attacked and held captive at our home in Kokadi by hooded and armed militias. We escaped kidnapping and were banned from visiting us. I also pay tribute to every victim of these sad events in our recent history. I renew my support for all those who are still unjustly imprisoned and tried despite the illegality of the legal proceedings initiated. I call for their release to strengthen the spirit of a climate of appeasement for the construction of lasting peace for our country.
Chris Yapi does not lie. Find Chris Yapi on his 2 YouTube channels, his Rumble channel, his TikTok, X, Instagram, VK and Threads accounts.